Hey everybody, Nick Olson, Chupacabra Off-Road, and for this video we're going to talk about how to plan and organize your first multi-day adventure ride. We're going to show you how we plan one of these rides using the OnX Offroad app, give you some tips on what you need to bring. We're also going to give you some feedback from some of the long multi-day trips that I've been on. And finally, we're going to dive into onxmaps.com and show you how we loaded in an existing built trail map and how we added some variations to make it our own. And then I'm going to show you the results of how the ride went and how it turned out. So we always get a lot of questions after we post one of these videos from a long multi-day ride. A lot of people always want to tag along, or they want to know the files so they can plan a ride for themselves. Now that's all good, but when you're going to be planning a multi-day ride, you've got a lot of different challenges and things that you need to think of, and it's far more difficult to organize a ride. Ultimately, you're going to be parking somewhere and most likely making a loop where you're going to start and finish a couple days later in the same exact area. Now, you need to have an area where you have room to park, and then as you're doing multi-day trips, you got to make sure you have a place to stay if you're not camping, and then also a place to eat if you're not bringing your own food. So these pose a new set of problems. Combine that with bigger mileage, now you got to make sure you've got enough fuel for everybody no matter where you're going to take them. All of these reasons make it a lot more challenging than going out to your local area or going on a day trip exploring for 10 to 12 hours where you know ultimately you're going to get back to your truck and trailer. So luckily for me, I've done a lot of these multi-day rides in different environments, so I've learned a lot. I started off as someone who's just lucky enough to have some friends invite them along, so all I had to do is really show up, be prepared, and go enjoy the ride. And now I'm trying to level up and plan and organize and lead some of these rides. So, you know, I've learned a lot, and I'm going to share that with you guys here today. So one ride we've been on and documented on this channel a few times is a ride from Rocky Point to El Golfo in Mexico. And now this is a really fun ride. You've got a little bit of everything. You do have to plan for gas. You do have to pack your own clothes. We haven't had a chase vehicle on this ride, but geographically it's fairly simple. There aren't a lot of big mountain ranges. It makes for a really good ride of about 80 to 90 miles each way per day. In Arizona, I got invited to do a Northern Arizona Super Loop, which was a really fun ride that my friends put together. They actually went and pre-ran the whole course to make sure there were no fence closings. And this ride started up in Happy Jack, which is really popular for those of us in Arizona like to ride during the summertime. We went all the way up to Winslow, Arizona, back down to Heber, and then finally finished back at our trucks in Happy Jack. Those mileages range from 50 to 80 miles per day, and was a great adventure. We had to bring all of our own clothes, but we had hotels to stay at each stop for each day. Speaking of Arizona, I was lucky enough to get invited with another group of friends to go to the Arizona Peace Trail, the northern half. Now, to do the entire Arizona Peace Trail, it is a 5 to 7 day adventure, but you can break it off in 3 to 4 day segments. So for this particular video that we shot, which we'll link below, we did the northern loop starting in Lake Havasu. We went up to Kingman, Arizona, back down towards Wickiup and near Siloam, and then finished up back in Lake Havasu. This loop we ended up doing in basically 2 long days, almost 400 miles, 350-ish. We stayed the night at a hotel in Kingman, went into the Hualapai Mountains, which were amazing. And after some vehicle issues, instead of making our way to Siloam to then make a day 3 to Desert Bar in Parker, we cut our trip short and cut back across. So that's how the trail worked out, and we did actually have somebody on standby as a chase truck in case one of our vehicles did have a catastrophic failure. Now, those are some really fun adventure rides, but we can't talk about an adventure trips without talking about Baja. Now, I've done 3 UTV trips, all ranging from about 450 to 500 miles, all 3-day trips. 2 of those 3 trips were led by a tour guide. They both started out of Tecate, finished back in Tecate, and stayed up in the northern area of Baja. And my most recent trip, which is linked below here on our YouTube channel, we did a Baja 500 pre-run, where we also added on about 15 miles of our own trail, as I wanted to get back to the beach and kind of work with the tools of the OnX app to make our own section, and then find the Chupacabra sign near Rancho Tampico, a small town on the coast. Now, this most recent trip was my first time leading down in Baja, and it poses a new set of challenges in that regard. So it's more adventurous, and also with planning a little break-off section, it was fun to use the tools of the app to plan out our own little segment, make sure that we didn't get turned around too much, got to the spot we wanted to go, and link back up with the route that we had planned for day 3 of our trip. So if you're watching this video, you're one of those people who really wants to plan a new adventure, you don't mind herding all the cats, all your friends, and you want to figure out how to safely get them from point A to point B, make sure everyone's got a place to stay, everyone's got food, and everyone's got fuel, and then hopefully everyone doesn't have any issues, got spare parts to fix for every year on the trail, so you can click off 3, 4, 500 miles in a few days or more, as long as you plan successfully and everyone kind of goes at a good speed and has the parts to make that happen. Now, speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about prepping your vehicle. Now, you can't do these rides without really being set up. And what I mean by that basically is tools and spare parts. Now, we're gonna link a video below in our description about what tools we bring on our rides. And this is kind of what we've learned from doing some of these group rides with some of my friends. Highly recommend you check it out because it not only has tools, it also has toe straps, it has spare nuts and bolts. Things that I've seen break on the trail, instances and examples of those, things that I bring now to hopefully prevent in the future if we do have one of those failures. And on top of that, when you're looking at a big trip like Baja, we were lucky enough to have a chase truck this time, so I brought an extra primary clutch. We brought axles, we brought some bigger componentry that, you know, could prevent us from having a failure or being stuck in the middle of nowhere. So check those videos, highly worth watching if you want to plan a big ride, because you can't be too prepared when you go on these long rides. The final thing I mentioned before I get into the course design is the pace. Now, one thing I learned the hard way, one of my first trips down to Mexico, was I was having fun behind a buddy, I was going fast, and then I broke my car. Bruh. So luckily I had another Razor donor car that had crashed, and I got to borrow some parts with a shock and a radius rod. But keep in mind this, when you're trying to do 500 miles a day, and tell this to everybody who's going on the ride, this isn't a glamorous pace we're gonna rip from pad 1 to Oldsmobile Hill pace. This is, the vehicles are loaded down, they probably have an extra 100, 200 pounds plus of gear in them, so they're gonna brake easier. The cars are gonna respond a little bit slower. Ideally, you're gonna make it throughout the day, especially if you're gonna go more than 150 miles in one day. Try to pick a pace that's fun, that matches what the group can do and likes to do, but hopefully you're not gonna have any flat tires, belt failures, all those type of things, because it's all fun and games, one belt failure, no big deal, but that can lead into an extra long day if there's multiple failures in the course of one long day. So just be thoughtful of that. Make sure you tell everybody, kind of take off a little bit easy, get into it, and then figure out the pace that works best for you and your group. So with all that being said, you got a good idea of the pace you want to run, you got your tools, you got your spare parts, your car's ready to go, you got some extra fuel, you've thought of everything you can think of. Let's jump into my screen share and I'm gonna show you how I use the map to plan out this ride. All right, so let's jump into screen share. This is OnX's website, which is onxmaps.com. If you're unfamiliar with the app, there's a couple different membership options. You've got free, which has some of your basic tools, a premium version, which is $29.99 a year, and then an elite version, which is $99.99 a year. Now, the biggest difference on the elite level is it gives you a full nationwide map to private land ownership. Now, this is a really big deal if you're planning rides up in Arizona, in particular here in the US. So that lets you know that if you're planning a route, you could come to an area that might not be legal. Now, this is a great feature they've imported from their hunting app, which is wildly popular, because as far as I know about hunting, I'm not big into it, but my buddies do hunt tell me that that's a big deal and you can get into a lot of trouble if you're hunting on the wrong property with the wrong permits, etc. So it's nice to know that for us as off-roaders, so that if we do come across someone's property, we might expect potentially a closed gate, or we need to work on a workaround so we don't go through someone's property that's not allowed. A good example of this is on our Northern Arizona Super Loop ride that my friends organized. They went and pre-ran the whole course, but I know they had to change a section when they did get into some private land ownership. So just things to be thoughtful, and I think it's worth the extra money if you're planning these rides from scratch. So I'm gonna go ahead and log in. This is what it looks like when we're logged into the app. And for the purpose of this example, we're gonna show you guys how we set up the Baja 500 ride. So here we are set up, and you can see as we go over here to Baja that the route has not been uploaded. And over here on the left, you've got a couple little Discover tabs. So you can see any trails that might be already marked out on OnX's app. Offline maps, which is a feature we'll talk about in a minute. But right over here on the left, you're gonna get into My Content. Now, as you zoom in, this is where the ride took place. And from here, we're gonna go ahead and find the file and then upload it. So step one, I went over to Score International's website. They're the federation that put on the Baja 500. And once you get the particular event that we went to, this is June 9th through the 13th. Right here, you can click to the course map on GPS files. So like a lot of other routes, you're gonna get a couple popular versions, those two versions being a GPX format or a KML format. Now here for the KML format, I'm gonna go ahead and save it. This is a 1.1 megabyte file. OnX accepts up to 2 megabyte files for routes that you can upload and then go ahead and make some adjustments. So moving back over to the app, what you're gonna do is you're going to import, and you're gonna find that file that you just downloaded. You're gonna go ahead and click save to my content. The save was successful, and here you go. Here is your 2021 Score Baja 500 course map all ready to go. Now what's really cool is this saves automatically right to your device as soon as you do this. So if you're using your phone, you're using your iPad, honestly I recommend using both on a ride. It's nice to have the phone as a backup. So both of these are going to upload right once you're logged into OnX now that we're good to go. Okay, so now we've got our Baja 500 course map uploaded, and I wanted to talk about why we decided to follow this route for the most part versus any other traditional ride you'd go with a completely different route. I'm bringing up this other map just to kind of give you a good idea so you can really see exactly what I'm talking about here. So most importantly, we had really good mileage every day. It was a 3-day trip, and we had good mileage between each stop for fuel as well as a place to stay at night. Now, looking at this map here on the left, we're gonna start off here in the town of Ensenada, and we're gonna go about 160, 170 miles where we stopped the first day, which was Rancho El Coyote. Now that's down here at race mile 160. Like I said, it was about 160, 170 miles total. Now, for these long multi-day rides, you got to really make sure that you're planning accordingly for fuel. For this particular ride, we ended up hiring a chase setup, which was, you know, majorly essential as one of our vehicles had an issue. And once we started off up here in Ensenada, we went down and we met them here at about 70 miles in to get our cars topped off. Now, the reason we did this is our lunch stop, which is here at Valley de Trinidad. This is about 105, 110 miles into our ride. We didn't think these vehicles may or may not be able to go 105 miles. My personal experience with turbocharged side-by-sides, even if they're not tuned, which those suck even more fuel, is that I've been in Baja myself and ran out about 90, 95 miles, even in a lighter weight 2-seat vehicle. So for the purpose of these type of trips, loaded down, you never know if someone's running a tune or their fuel economy isn't that great. I wanted to go no further than 70 miles without having to plan for fuel. Now, we all brought fuel on our vehicles as an emergency, but we did get a gas up at race mile 70. We also got topped off with gas and we had lunch at race mile 110, and that allowed us to go the additional 50 miles from lunch up to our final spot for the end of day one. So this ends up being a really good route for this reason. Day 2 also, we would go a good route, get gas stops, stay in the hotel, and then day 3 loop back up to Ensenada. So it worked out really well for those 2 reasons. I think gas and stops are the most important when you're thinking about where we're gonna go, how we're gonna get there, how we're gonna make it. A third factor is us being racers, being people who love the racing aspect of it. We wanted to follow the course. Like I've always wanted to see how Score marks a course. Like I mentioned, Score Racing is pretty open to interpretation. They race from checkpoint to checkpoint. And as long as the racer stays within 50 feet, well, you can get creative with your lines you choose. So as a race fan and enthusiast, I always wanted to see how they marked it, how liberal it was in some sections. What are some sections where there's no way people were gonna be able to cut the course and potential bottlenecks could and did occur. That was just really exciting as a race enthusiast to kind of see how it really trickled down and was a cool feature. And finally, you know, there's the safety element of us following the race course. So there's gonna be all the same traffic going the same way, which I thought was gonna make it a lot safer for us leading on our own without a tour guide for our first time. And then it hit a lot of our favorite hotspots, stuff that some of us haven't got to hit before. So we got to go down the Goat Trail, we got to stop at Mike's Sky Ranch. Rancho Coyote is an amazing place. I highly recommend staying there if you get a chance to, if that's where your route dictates. And then also in some new spots I hadn't been to, San Quintin down along the coast was beautiful. A lot of fun, fast miles along the beach. And then also allow us to make our own little offshoot to really use the app to get a little more adventurous, to get off the beaten path, head back over to the coast, and to have a good time out that way before we reconnected back in Santo Tomas. So that's why I decided to use it, and it was a good step of getting more adventurous, but not completely on our own, which I don't think I have the knowledge of Baja to really take that to the next level, but that's coming in the future for sure. So now that the race course is in and you got an idea from 0 to day 1, from day 1 to day 2, and from Rancho El Coyote all the way down here to San Quintin and up staying in Vicente Guerrero. That's right about race mile 295 or 300. That ended up being a great second day. It was really technical, and we stopped here halfway at race mile 225 and went up to the small town of Camalú so that we could get fuel. And we actually linked up with our friends that had issues from the day 1. They got the car fixed and met us there as a good halfway. And then we ended up joining back up with them, going back down to race mile 255 and stopping for a taco lunch break, and then finished our day there. Now, for day 3, we ended up coming back up the coast, race mile 300, and we went up to this teal marker right here, which is a small town of San Vicente. So all these waypoints you can change. I like marking them teal so they stick out on the map. And from here we created our own loop where we wanted to do a Chup loop. We went along the beach. This is a great spot I've been to a couple times. There's a small town called Rancho Tampico, and they've got a sign that says Picasso and Chupacabra. So we wanted to leave some swag there, sticker it up, go down to the beach and get some more content, enjoying just the nice weather and all that type of stuff. So my plan was to link over through here and then link back up to right where the race course picked it back up, which was right here, race mile 385. And then that took us back up through some really fun, fast, flowy section of race course up here to the small town of Santo Tomas, where we would get gas again. So things you thought of, you know, we made 70 miles to get the fuel, got the gas, quick little top off at Santo Tomas, then we finished out our day heading back up to Ensenada. But here's where the app tools are really nice. And I started making my own line. Now, another cool feature of OnX Offroad on the app, of course, is on the desktop, is you got this 3D feature. So I'm gonna switch over to 3D mode, and gives you a good idea of the lay of the land. And you've done a lot of off-roading like myself, you have an idea of, we basically want to get down a wash line in this instance. When we get down to this small town of Arindara. Now, pretty simple, and once we get along here, you can see OnX already has a road or trail already mapped out along the coast. And this coastal trail links up to a beach line, which I kind of planned on stopping, and then it links back up and loops back through. So this is the most adventurous I had got in terms of using this trail. And really, the only section I was overly worried about was jumping in the wash. We're jumping in higher. We weren't gonna jump on the race course going backwards, but we were gonna link up with this OnX route. And you know, you never know what could happen. There could be a closed fence. Part of the wash could be flooded. So from right here, we go back into 2D mode. Okay, so once you've got the kind of the 3D geography all lined up, get an idea of what the trail looks like, I'm gonna go ahead and zoom way in, back to 2D mode, and I'm gonna go ahead and use the tools up here, and I'm gonna start drawing lines. I'm gonna go ahead and start drawing in teal, and we figured out a spot on the race course we could safely go down the wash here without going along the race course. And then we kind of started marking along this route. So here I'm gonna go up to this road. We kind of went around to here. We stayed along this. Go ahead and save it. As you can see, as I'm drawing it out, it lets you know how long each segment is. So here we kind of branched off. We got down in the wash. And you know, as I'm looking at this, I'm looking at all the geography. I know that there's multiple lines down here in this wash. I also know that all my crew is gonna be following these lines, assuming it's the exact trail. So, you know, I kind of told the guys, like, look, I'm designing this, I'm kind of cutting it out, kind of similar to the Score Baja course. You know, they did a good job kind of giving you the general direction, but you can't take it as it's the exact note, and you might get off a little and etc. But that just means that, you know, we're going in the general direction. Like I said, using your geography, you want to be able to get down the course, this instance, the wash, to get down to the spot that we wanted to get, the little town of Arindara. Now, I had a little inside knowledge. I've been down there a couple times. I know that you need to go slow through that town as there's a lot of produce and the farmers will get mad at you. But I also know too, knowing that OnX has a trail marked out, that we can also join on and link it back up as we did. So I keep going this way, and I'm gonna show you guys the complete loop that I mapped out. And then I'm also gonna show you how closely I was able to follow it, you know, what were the discrepancies, and maybe how those kind of varied to the Score course map versus the actual trail map that we rode. So I keep on going on. We're gonna hop over, I'm gonna log in, log out of this, log into mine, so you can see how well I aligned the course out, how well we followed it, and just some other things I learned through this whole experience. Okay, so now I logged back into my account so you can see the ride that we did. You can click on the line for each of the 3 days, but since we're talking about this little loop we did, here is the double line. So the red line is what I drew out, the teal line ends up being the trail that we rode on. So starting from the beginning, you can see here, we kind of followed along, and then right here, we jumped into the wash. No big deal, but for the most part, it isn't exact, right? You're gonna get off the course a little bit, just like we did with Score's course map. And we learned a lot, but basically we made our way down the wash. We ended up linking up with part of the trail that was already outlined on OnX's map. We jumped back in through the town of Arindara, which was really cool. I hadn't actually seen the downtown part of it. And then we followed along pretty much exact, which is also the OnX course map, which is kind of the only trail here that goes along the beach. Now here you can see where we jumped off the beach. We stopped and hung out for a minute. That's where we shot some of the content for our video, got some cool drone clips. And then from here, I did have a little issue. I took us all down to this private beach and we got stuck and had to turn around. And what happened was when I'm lining out the course, you can see the red line here. I thought we could go along this beach section from past memory. I was wrong. This is a private little beach and there wasn't actually a trail right here. And what I was trying to do is make sure I didn't go too far over to the right and miss the Chupacabra sign. I hadn't been down here in 3 years, almost 4 years, so I want to make sure we didn't go past it and miss it. So no big deal. We ended up looping back around. We come back up and we get back onto the trail, which is the OnX trail. Here it kind of winds and comes back together. It links back up. This would have been a really good spot right here on the beach to go. It just had more room. But beautiful, beautiful area. I mean, how many times you guys get to ride your off-road vehicle along the beach? Pretty much only in Mexico, excluding Pismo Beach. So really rad. And then links us back up. Here's where we saw the Chupacabra sign. I think it was right here. Got some photos, shot some content, which is really cool. And then we continue along. This kind of climbs up a way, and once you get back going, it's really sad because you make a turn and you no longer get to see beach for the rest of our ride. It is pretty fun and flowy. And once you got back up to this section here, we had to make sure we hung a right and didn't go back down towards the beach. We started heading back in and up the coast. Also too, right up here, there's a big T on the road. And you can see right here, this is the big thing where I made a checkpoint and I called out, hey, right turn everybody. Make sure you don't go left and you go back to the beach, because this is the route that we have planned to make sure we don't have any issues with fuel and with time. This linked us backed up to the small town of race mile 385, the small town of Santo Tomas. And then we hopped on the race course, which was really fun and fast, like I mentioned. Excuse me, and this is where it jumped back on to Santo Tomas. Boom. Speed zone. Baja racing, they want to limit the speed to 37 miles per hour during in these small towns to keep things as safe as possible. So that was a little branch off. It was cool. Couple little slight turnarounds. A couple people got on the radio, said, hey, Nick, did you check your GPS? Are we all good? You know, it wasn't too much of a long route, but you know, keeping these things in mind, it's day 3 of a long day of ride. Want to make sure, again, we have a fun, safe experience. The 3D feature was really nice just to have an idea. We know there's some big hills here, and keep that in mind. It was cool to see how it worked out. It worked out really well as an idea of the lay of the land from being there 3 or 4 years ago and what it was going to look like using the app. So good features, very helpful, highly recommend, and it's going to really help you plan out your routes. Link onto some of these OnX trails if you can. They're known routes. They're going to be safe and easy to follow, and then you get a rating of how hard they were. These are greens. They were basic, simple fire roads. All good. I mean, we encountered so much different types of terrain. It was good to just make sure we clicked off good steady miles. So a couple other features I want to point out now that you've got the app inside of your phone or your smart device. I'm gonna go do a screen record here so you can kind of see. One thing you're gonna notice, you can see the same route that we went. If you want to see the mileage, now we documented all of this each day. But for instance, here is a ride day 1. You can go ahead and you can share this with one of your buddies. You can text them, you can email them. Pretty cool to share your route. All 3 of those days are linked in the description of our YouTube ride. You add your waypoint. So at day 1, here's a waypoint. I called this one Overheat Hill because that's where one of my buddies first started having issues with his Razor. Lo and behold, he needed a new intercooler, and our chase crew, the guys at Baja Powerhouse, JC and the gang had an extra intercooler and saved basically the last 2/3 of their trip. One thing you're gonna notice, here's one more waypoint here towards the end of day 1, boom, Rancho El Coyote, where we stayed. But as I zoom out, you're going to see some green rectangles, and those are where I downloaded high-res apps. Now, you can download offline maps, and if you want to create a new one, you've got 3 options. You've got a 5-mile, 10-mile, and 150-mile resolution. Now, I like to do some 10-mile resolutions, which I thought was pretty good, and I chose to download those maps before we took off because those are situations where we'll be stopping for fuel. Maybe when you have some chase support, that's where we're gonna need the high resolution maps. So I did that up here around, ironically, we started having issues around race mile 70 into lunch 110. I did also the second one as we were coming out of Mike's Sky Ranch to end day 2. And then down at the bottom here, I did the bottom half of the loop where we're gonna stop for tacos and kind of where we, right below where we cut off and grab some fuel. And then most importantly on day 3 here, downloaded some maps of our loop so that we had high res imagery in case we needed it, in case we got turned around, we had that to call on our smart devices. Now, like I said, run a backup. I ran an iPad, which I use the XGPS 160 sensor that updates 10 times a minute. The beautiful thing about that sensor, it's 150 bucks, but it'll take any old tablet or non-GPS lower cost tablet, and it makes it work better than your GPS unit. So we use that. The GPS starts to die, just the charging it on the Razor just doesn't keep up. You kind of need to charge it all day. We're using it so much. So I use my phone as well, so we kind of had that as a backup in case we needed it, and I'd highly recommend doing that. So I used a RAM mount for my phone. Sometimes I had it in my door bag, but I always had it at fingertips reach in case my dad got turned around a little bit. So that XGPS sensor, we'll go ahead and link it. You can simply purchase off Amazon. It's a nice addition to have. Most everyone's got an old iPad laying around. It makes it work really well for this scenario. You just have to make sure it's not underneath your roof and has access to the satellite so it can work. So a couple other features on the app. The double tap is nice. It allows you to zoom in. Go right over here where we kind of stop. Just like on the desktop, your smartphone has the 3D feature as well. So you can kind of look and get a good lay of the land. And we use this actually a couple times when we're down in Baja. Just as I always know, I'm thinking ahead, I'm planning for everybody, making sure, okay, that was supposed to be a hillside, yep, feels like we're going the right way. So a little memorization using the 3D feature of the geography, really, if you have a good memory, it's gonna pay big dividends, just that peace of mind, so you know, someone gets on the radio, nope, we're going the right spot, this is good, trust yourself, believe in the route that you planned, it's working out okay, and that's what worked out for us. So it worked out good. So app's a great tool, guys. I hope you liked this video. I hope it's really helpful. Hopefully it motivates you to start planning out your own multi-day trip. I know after this, we have more Baja in the future, but also some more Chupacabra rides here in Arizona. I think Peace Trail will be pretty easy. They've got the maps on their website. ArizonaPeaceTrail.org, I think, is the website. We'll link it below. They've got the map there if you want to do part of it. It's a great ride. It'd be fairly easy because also from day to day, you've got Havasu to Kingman, Kingman to Wickiup, Wickiup to Salome, Salome to Parker. You've got places to get you, destinations that do have motels, get a shower, get a meal, grab ice and gas, so you can keep on keeping on. And I think the AZ Peace Trail ride very much reminded me of Baja in that regard, and easier, you don't necessarily need a chase to get it done, and it's a lot more close for most of you watching this. So hope you guys like the content. If you guys do, please like and subscribe. We've got a lot more coming your way.